There is a cardinal in your yard right now who has been watching you for years. Every morning you step outside, every afternoon in the garden, every time you walk to the car or stand on the porch. And there is one specific thing, something that takes 2 seconds and costs you nothing, that he has been waiting his entire life for you to do. Most people never do it, not because they don't care, because nobody ever told them it was something that mattered. If you want to know what the birds outside your window are really doing, thinking, and waiting for, subscribe to Bird Sense right now. This is exactly what we uncover every week. To understand what that cardinal has been doing every time you appeared, you have to understand something most people never think about. Wild birds do not experience their environment the way we do. They do not move through the world with the luxury of assuming safety. Every single moment of a bird's life is spent in a state of active threat assessment. Every movement in the yard, every shadow across the grass, every figure that steps through a back door, all of it gets processed, categorized, and filed. And by the time you read this, that cardinal has filed you hundreds of times. Not your face specifically. Cardinals do not build the kind of detailed, individual face recognition profile that a crow would. The cognitive architecture for that level of recognition exists mainly in corvids. What songbirds build instead is something different, and in some ways more intimate, a pattern-based profile. Your gait, your daily routine, the tone of your voice drifting through the open window, the rhythm of how you move through the space you share with him. Over months, and sometimes years of observation, he has done something very specific. With all of that data, he has categorized you as safe, not trusted, not known, safe, which from his perspective is the single most important categorization that exists. You do not chase him, you do not lunge, you do not move with the kind of sudden, unpredictable energy that his nervous system was built to treat as a threat. And so, after hundreds of careful observations, the file he built on you landed in one folder. Tolerated background presence. That folder is not small. Most humans who ever interact with a wild bird spend their entire lives in it, and most of them never move. Not because the bird decided against it, because the human never gave the signal that would have moved them. There is another folder, and the birds that place a specific human there behave differently in measurable, observable, real ways. The question is how you get there. To understand that, you have to understand how birds monitor attention. A study published in the Proceedings of the Royal Society tested how European magpies responded to humans who looked directly at them versus humans who deliberately looked away. The result was striking. Magpies allowed humans who were not looking at them to approach significantly closer before flushing. They flew earlier and flew further when they were being stared at. The birds were not just tracking whether a human was present, they were tracking where the human's attention was pointed. This is not a corvid-specific finding. Gaze sensitivity has been documented across dozens of bird species because the reason for it is older than any particular bird's intelligence. Every visual predator that has ever existed on this planet fixes its eyes on prey before striking. Direct, sustained eye contact is by evolutionary default the precursor to an attack. Birds that did not track human gaze did not survive long enough to pass on their genes. So when you stare at a bird, even with nothing but warmth and curiosity, his nervous system reads it the same way it reads a hawk locking onto a target, but a glance, soft, brief, 2 seconds, gaze moving naturally away afterward, does not trigger that response. What it does instead is register as something the bird has never recorded from you before. A new data point. Novel. Non-threatening. Requiring processing. Most people either ignore the birds in their yard entirely or stare too long when they finally notice one. Both of those patterns are already filed. A brief, calm acknowledgement followed by no threat behavior is genuinely new information, and the bird's threat assessment system has to incorporate it. That incorporation is what produces the small behavioral shifts that people often describe without quite being able to explain as the bird responding to me. Voice works on the same principle. Research on house sparrows demonstrated that birds learn to associate specific human voices with specific outcomes: food, threat, or neutral presence. The cardinal in your yard has heard your voice hundreds of times through open windows and porch conversations, but he has almost never heard you speak at the tone and volume associated with addressing him directly. Soft, low, calm vocalization with no sudden sharpness gets filed as social communication. He does not understand a single word. He is reading the acoustic signature, the tone, the lack of aggression, the directional attention, and he is adding all of it to the file he has been building on you since the first morning he saw you step outside. When you do both things together, the brief glance and the quiet voice, something observable happens almost immediately. The bird freezes for a fraction of a second. He tilts his head. He looks back at you. It is worth being honest about what is actually happening in that moment, because the emotional framing people reach for gets the science wrong. The freeze is not recognition in any emotional sense. It is recalculation. You broke your usual routine, and he needs to update his model. The head tilt is not a greeting. Cardinals have laterally placed eyes and tilt their heads to bring one eye forward, to focus more clearly on something that just became worth examining. What he is doing is gathering data on what changed. But that data gathering is the proof that your action registered. You moved out of the tolerated background folder and into a category that requires more specific processing. And if you do this consistently, not once, but every morning for a week, the behavioral shifts that follow are real and measurable. He will linger longer when you are outside. He will return to the feeder more reliably when you are the one who filled it. He will reduce his alarm response when you appear. He will allow you to get closer before he moves. He is not experiencing affection. He is revising his risk model. But the practical outcome, a bird that stays on the fence while you walk across the yard instead of vanishing the moment the door opens, is something you will actually see. And it is a direct result of something you did. The time scale of this matters more than most people realize. A northern cardinal lives an average of 3 years in the wild, though some reach 15. A black-capped chickadee averages 2.5. A mourning dove, 2. These are short lives spent in nearly continuous vigilance. Every day a bird spends in your yard represents a meaningful fraction of everything it will ever experience. The cardinal that has been coming to your feeder for 2 years has been coming for most of his life, every morning and every afternoon, assessing the environment, updating his model, making the small decisions that add up to survival. You are a major feature of that environment, one of the most consistent, most carefully tracked features he has. And right now you are filed under tolerated, but unread. Tomorrow morning, go out to fill the feeder at your usual time. He will already be there. He has learned your schedule, and he has positioned himself for it. Find him. Look at him for 2 seconds. Not a stare, just a soft glance with the kind of calm attention that doesn't lock. Say something quiet, whatever feels natural. Then look away and finish what you came out to do. Do that every morning for a week. Your bird's behavior will shift in ways you can see, and to a cardinal who has 3 years to live. To the small life that has been quietly tracking you through every ordinary morning you have ever walked out into, the difference between a yard that is merely safe and a yard that contains a known, individually recognized human is not a small thing. It is a real difference in the quality of his existence. You can be the reason that shift happens, and it takes 2 seconds and costs you nothing. Tell me in the comments Is there a specific bird in your yard you have started to recognize as an individual? Have you ever stopped and acknowledged one directly? Did you notice a shift in how it behaved around you afterward? I read every single one. Subscribe to BirdSense. And if you want to know what the birds in your yard are actually signaling when they sing at 4 in the morning, that video is right there waiting for you.